Have you ever wondered how much of life is simply about showing up? This question takes us down the path of an old quote that states 80% of life is about showing up. Now, what does showing up mean? It can mean many different things to many different people, but the essence of the idea is not complicated. Let's dive a little deeper. Think about it. You can't score a goal if you're not on the field. You can't win a race if you're not at the starting line. You can't seize an opportunity if you're not present when it arises. This is the power of showing up. It's the first step in the journey towards achievement, the primary condition for success. Showing up means being present, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. It's about being fully engaged in whatever you're doing, being in the moment, ready to take on whatever comes your way. It's about making a commitment to yourself and honoring that commitment by being there, by showing up. Showing up is an act of courage. It's about facing the unknown, the uncertain, the unpredictable. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone and daring to confront whatever challenges or opportunities life throws at you. It's about taking control of your life, taking responsibility for your actions, and taking the initiative to make things happen. Showing up is an act of faith. It's about believing in yourself, in your abilities, in your potential. It's about trusting in the process, having faith in the journey, knowing that every step you take, every move you make, every decision you make brings you closer to your goals, to your dreams, to your destiny. Showing up is an act of resilience. It's about bouncing back from setbacks, overcoming obstacles, enduring hardships, and persisting in the face of adversity. It's about never giving up, never backing down, never losing hope, never losing sight of your vision, your mission, your purpose. Remember, you can't do anything of significance unless you have first and foremost arrived. So are you ready to show up? Let me tell you about a day when showing up was a struggle, yet it was necessary. Picture this. I woke up one morning, my head pounding like a drum. I was tired, bone tired, the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your very marrow. It was one of those restless nights where sleep was a coveted treasure, one that I couldn't find no matter how hard I tried. My body felt heavy, my mind foggy, and my spirit low. You know that feeling, don't you? The one where you are so tired that you're constantly reminding yourself how much you didn't sleep, like a mantra of weariness that echoes throughout the day. Everything felt off-kilter, like a painting slightly askew on a wall. Even as I share this with you, that sense of disorientation hasn't entirely faded. So there I was, caught in the throes of this struggle. The idea of taking the day off was like a siren song, tempting and alluring. Maybe you deserve a day off, a little voice whispered in my ear. The devilish imp of procrastination perched on my shoulder. I was teetering on the edge, weighing my options. I took some ibuprofen, started brewing coffee, and sat down on the couch, staring at the wall, lost in a sea of indecision. But deep down, I knew what I had to do. I had to show up. Over the years, I've trained myself to understand that sitting down to write and record is non-negotiable. It's a commitment I've made to myself, a promise etched in stone. It's in these moments when the struggle is real and palpable that we must rise to the occasion. The journey to any meaningful pursuit is not a smooth road. It's filled with bumps and potholes, twists and turns. There will be days when every fiber of your being will scream at you to stop, to rest, to give in to the temptation of ease. But it's on these days, more than any other, that you must push through. You must show up. Despite the circumstances, I knew I had to show up. Over the years, I've taught myself that showing up is a non-negotiable. There's a rhythm to life, a pulse that beats in time with our commitments. It's not always easy to keep up with, especially when the melody of comfort sings its siren song. But there's something special about keeping up with commitments, even when it's difficult. It's the grit, the determination, the audacity to say, I will not be swayed by the winds of inconvenience. Stephen Pressfield, an author whose words often guide me, once said that art is a war. It's a battle between ourselves and the forces of self-sabotage that would stop us from doing our work. This concept isn't just for artists, but for anyone pushing the boundaries of what exists and what can be. We're all artists in our own right, and our canvas is the world we shape with our actions. There are times when our minds, weary and distracted, start seeking exits. It's in these moments that we find ourselves at a crossroads. One path leads to the comfort of the known, the other to the uncertainty of growth. And it's in these decisions, often trivial on the surface, that we define who we are. Greatness, you see, is a byproduct of intentionality. It's the result of 1,000 small decisions, each one a promise to ourselves. When we get used to breaking these promises, to allowing for exceptions, we leave the door ajar for mediocrity to sneak in. That's why I hold myself accountable to seemingly insignificant tasks, like ensuring there are no dishes in the sink before I go to bed. Because if I let it slide once, it becomes easier to let it slide again, and that's the slippery slope to stagnation. So, as we navigate the battlefield of our minds, let's remember that showing up, despite the circumstances, is a non-negotiable. It's the cornerstone of progress, the bedrock of growth, because at the end of the day, greatness is a byproduct of intentionality. If you become accustomed to breaking promises to yourself, it will ultimately backfire. Let's unpack that a bit. Suppose you decide to leave dishes in the sink overnight just once. You think it's a minor transgression, hardly worth noting. But here's the catch. Once you skip it, there will always exist reasons to skip it again. It's a slippery slope, my friends. By allowing yourself to make this tiny exception, you're essentially telling yourself that it's okay to break promises, to not show up. And that attitude, that mindset, it's like a contagion. It starts to infect other areas of your life. Before you know it, those dishes are piling up, not just in your sink, but metaphorically in your life as well. Now, why is this important? Well, it's because progress and growth are not just occasional endeavors. They're not something you dip your toes into when the water is warm and retreat when it gets a bit chilly. No, progress and growth are lifestyles. They're about showing up consistently, no matter the circumstances, no matter how you feel. You see, each time you show up, each time you keep a promise to yourself, you're building a fortress of trust within yourself. You're telling yourself, I can rely on me. And that is powerful. That's what makes you resilient. That's what makes you unstoppable. But the reverse is equally true. Each time you don't show up, each time you break a promise to yourself, you're chipping away at that fortress. You're sowing seeds of doubt, of unreliability. And that, my friends, is a dangerous game to play. So guard your promises. Show up, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient. Because the consequences of not showing up are far greater than a sink full of dishes. They're about self-trust, self-respect, and self-growth. And those are things worth fighting for. If we leave that door cracked for exceptions here and there, it will ultimately be kicked open. So my friends, let's keep that door firmly shut. Show up every day in every way. It's a promise worth keeping. Trevor Moawad's book, It Takes What It Takes, discusses the illusion of choice. This idea is a game changer, folks. It's a concept that takes the idea of showing up and adds a whole new dimension to it. In our lives, we often believe we have a multitude of choices. We think we can choose whether to show up or not, whether to work hard or take it easy, whether to push ourselves or stay in our comfort zones. But here's the kicker, this is an illusion. In reality, if we want to achieve anything of significance, there are certain behaviors we absolutely must carry out. To be effective, to make progress, to evolve in any meaningful way, we don't have a wide array of choices. In fact, our choices are quite limited. Imagine you're an athlete. You can't choose whether to train or not. Training is not optional, it's a must. It's a behavior that you must carry out to be effective. It's the same with any other pursuit. If you're a writer, you can't choose whether to write or not. Writing is not optional, it's a must. It's a behavior that you must carry out to be effective. The illusion of choice can be a tricky one. It can lead us to believe that we have the freedom to do as we please, to take the path of least resistance. But this illusion can be a trap. It can lead us to make choices that hinder our progress, that stunt our growth. It can keep us stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. So how do we dispel this illusion? By recognizing that in any meaningful pursuit, there are certain non-negotiable behaviors. By understanding that these behaviors are not optional but essential. By committing to carry out these behaviors no matter what. The illusion of choice highlights that there are a set of behaviors that must be carried out to be effective. This understanding can be the catalyst for a profound shift in our approach to life. It can empower us to show up, to work hard, to push ourselves, to evolve. It can lead us to greatness. In conclusion, showing up is not just about being physically present. It's an attitude, a mindset, a commitment to oneself and to the task at hand. It's about overcoming the myriad of excuses our minds can concoct, from the minor inconveniences to the major hurdles, and still choosing to take action. Reflect on the struggle of showing up. We've all been there, wrestling with the temptation to take the day off, to postpone, to give in to the little devil whispering sweet nothings of rest and relaxation. But remember, it's in these moments that the true test of character lies. It's in these moments that we must rally our willpower, silence the whispers, and choose to show up. Think of showing up as a non-negotiable. Like brushing your teeth or making your bed, it's a daily ritual that cannot be compromised. It's not something we do when we feel like it or when the stars align. It's something we do consistently, persistently, and relentlessly. It's about carving out a piece of our day, regardless of the circumstances, and dedicating it to our craft, our passion, our purpose. Consider the consequences of not showing up. Each time we succumb to excuses, we're not just missing out on an opportunity to make progress, but we're also conditioning ourselves to break promises, to accept mediocrity. It's a slippery slope, and before we know it, we've strayed far from the path of progress and into the wilderness of complacency. Finally, dispel the illusion of choice. In the pursuit of success, there's no room for alternative routes or shortcuts. There's only one way forward, and that's by showing up, day in and day out. It's about embracing the grind, the monotony, the repetition, and finding joy in the process. Remember, 80% of life is showing up, so make the choice to show up no matter what.